Hello, everyone. We're so happy to have you here with us on the Stronger Marriage webinar produced by the Utah Marriage Commission, hosted by Utah State University. I'm Alexis Alcock, the UMC Program Coordinator, and we're excited to have you join us today as we celebrate 25 years of marriage celebrations in 2023. And happy Valentine's Day. This is our Valentine's Day webinar in a way. And we're so excited to be joined by Dr. Dave Schramm. Dave works as a professor and extension specialist in the Department of Human Development and Family Science at the University of Missouri for 9 years before joining the faculty here at Utah State University in 2016. His research centers on couple relationships, parenting, and flourishing at home and at work. He's appointed by Governor Herbert to serve on the UMC's commission in 2016. He shares research and tips on helping individuals parent and couples flourish on social media. He co-hosts the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast with Dr. Liz Hale that's released weekly and gives the best research-based tips and tricks to improve your marriage. He's given over 500 presentations, classes, and workshops to a variety of audiences from British Columbia to Beijing, China, and here in the States from St. Louis to San Francisco. Outside of the classroom, Dave is a scientific consultant for businesses and organizations. He presents on topics ranging from positivity to productivity and parenting, from happy hacks to healthy habits, and from brain boosters to balancing work and family and building resilience, and from motivation and mindfulness to marriage and relationships. His approach is founded on decades of science showing that when people flourish in their personal and home lives, they are more invested and flourish at home and at work. In this webinar today, Dr. Dave Schramm will share principles from his new curriculum, Road to Happiness and Meaning. This includes principles related to searching inward, turning outward, looking upward, and pressing forward. He will also share where you can register for the free classes and share details about other free resources that the Utah Marriage Commission offers. If you have any questions, please ask them by entering your questions in the Q&A function that's found at the bottom of your screens. The chat will be turned off during the entirety of the presentation, so this is really the best place to ask your questions. We'll have a 15-minute Q&A at the end of his presentation, so write down your questions and save them for the end. If you've joined us today for the CEU credit, make sure to stay on until the end of the presentation. The survey needed for your credit will automatically load onto the screen, and then you'll receive an email from the Utah Marriage Commission with your certificate. You can also email the Utah Marriage Certificate if for some reason your survey doesn't load onto the screen at marriagecommission@usu.edu to receive your survey on this webinar. Once the survey is completed, you'll attain an email with your CEU credit certification. We'll now turn the time over to Dave for his presentation.
Hey, thanks so much, Alexis. Sure appreciate it. We're so grateful to have Alexis with us here at the Utah Marriage Commission to be able to do so much behind the scenes, including helping with these webinars. So welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited to be able to share some things that I'm really passionate about. She mentioned Valentine's Day coming up next week. I truly believe that a healthy we starts with a happy, healthy me individually. And so giving a little bit about background about this curriculum that I developed, it's taken honestly over 10 years. So I started kind of the ideas, started a lot of the principles and practices when I was a professor at the University of Missouri. And then coming here about 7.5 years ago, I continued to mull things over and try to put the very best in positive psychology and neuroscience, in relationships, managing stress into this curriculum. And so I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of it here today. I'll conclude with some of the more resources that we offer. We offer just so much here at the Utah Marriage Commission with USU Extension. And the best part, it's free. It's free. So let's jump in. Let me share my screen. As I talk about this curriculum today, the whole metaphor of this journey, because I really see this life as a journey, as we will wind our way down the road of life. There's going to be bumps and bruises, all kinds of stuff that's going to impact our life. So let me jump in and share just kind of the overview. The whole experience, big picture, we'll start out with is that this whole experience is about helping people discover more joy and more meaning in your life journey. And I really, those are related. We'll talk a little bit about what leads to joy, what leads to meaning in life. I break it down into 4 sessions. Really, it was designed for 4 2-hour sessions, the curriculum itself. The first one talks about discovering, building, and using your strengths. I'm a huge fan of starting with strengths. And so there's ways that we assess those, starting with those strengths. And we'll go over some of that, an overview of the first session. And then the second session is about understanding and managing stress and challenges, because all of us will experience those in our personal lives and in our parenting and our relationships at work, you name it, and we're going to have challenges and stress. And the third session, the third 2-hour session reviews. It's all about positivity. It's all about happy hacks and meaning in that one. And then the fourth one, we wrap up with improving personal relationships. So this could be couple relationships, or if you're single, it could be roommates, it could be those that you work with. But all of us will interact with people. And actually, one of the strongest predictors of happiness and well-being in this life, study after study has continued to show, it's the quality of your personal relationships. Okay, so jumping right in, I'll give you a little snapshot, a little kind of taste or a little teaser from each of the lessons. The first one I have called Getting Our Hearts Right, and Ready for the Journey. So again, it's all about kind of this inner searching inward, as Alexis talked about. So these 4 words really summarize the entire curriculum. We talk about searching inward and about turning outward, about looking upward, and then pressing forward. And so each of those are really 2-hour segments. Okay, so for this first one, the searching inward, talk about, again, kind of big picture type stuff. In order to really understand more about us, we have to understand that we're all born with at least 3 essential fundamental needs. Okay, the first need is the need for safety. This is physical safety, emotional safety, um, food, clothing, shelter, feeling like I can risk with other people. The second need that we're all born with is the need for satisfaction, to do fun, to do enjoyable things. This is the bowl of ice cream, to Netflix, to being able to be successful at work, to do fun, enjoyable things. The third one, the need that we're all born with, is the need for connection. We're all born with this longing for belonging, this craving for connection with other people. We do that through kindness and gratitude and service, compassion, attention. And the result of these is feeling peace, feeling contentment, and feeling love. So I start with that, with the big picture of the 3 needs, because really a lot of the struggles in life come from not having one or more of those needs met. Okay, what is happiness? What is happiness? A lot of us are mistaken. We think that happiness is had for more stuff. We'll talk about different types of happiness, but a lot of us seem to chase happiness, at least in the world, chasing success, pursuing stuff. If I can just get this car or promotion or job, it's somewhere out in the future, right? If I can just get that promotion, or I'll be happy. I remember just thinking, soon as my kids are potty trained, or if I can lose weight, or if I can get more muscle, whatever that is, it's all this external stuff that to bring us happiness. So the question has been, is happiness the reward we get for doing our best? If I worked really hard as a parent, or in my relationship, or at work, then I'll be successful, and then I'll be happy. But new research in positive psychology, neuroscience shows that it works the other way around. When we're positive and happy and fulfilled, and we have this meaning and purpose in life, then it spills over into every other area in our lives. So it's a happy, positive person spilling over to a better parent, a better person, a better partner, which spills over into positive outcomes, productivity, as well. Okay, 3 types of happiness. I mentioned this earlier. What is it when we talk about happiness? What do we mean? Martin Seligman says there's at least 3 types. One, there's this pleasant life. It's like, yes, pleasures and positive emotions. That's the cheesecake, or the feeling in love. Sexual intimacy is part of that pleasurable life. And that's great, but it's not very sustainable. It just doesn't last very long. It's more of like this flash of positivity. We get this adrenaline rush on the roller coaster or whatever, but an important piece of happiness, to be sure, but it's not long lasting. The second type of happiness Seligman talks about is the engaged life, to be really engaged and immerse ourselves in something. So you're using your gifts, your talents, your strengths in a maybe you're working with wood, maybe it's scrapbooking. My wife, it's sourdough, right? She's be able to almost lose track of time when she's involved in something. And the third type is the meaningful life. So you invest in something higher and bigger than yourself. It's important to really realize that all three of these are important. Being able to balance them, though, is key. Um, let's see. Let me get rid of this. I got a little question that popped up, a little poll here. Okay. What contributes to happiness? Okay. All of us are born with a set genetic set point, right, of our happiness. We inherit it. So it's either from our parents. Only account for about half of our happiness. Other things, what is it? About 10% is a result of our outside circumstances. And that's how much money you have, or what kind of car you drive, or the phone, or the stuff, even in your relationship, even in your marriage. Isn't that interesting? Why? Because we tend to get used to people really, really quickly. So it only accounts for about 10%. So I don't talk a whole lot about those. We do talk about relationships in the curriculum, but this 40% of the slice of the happiness pie is really what a lot of this curriculum focuses on. And that's our intentional thoughts, our actions, our behaviors, things we have so much more control over is that slice of the pie. Okay, another part that we talk about in this searching inward part is our emotions, because man, we're emotional beings. Sometimes some of us more than others, right? Think about it. All emotions that we experience in the present moment. However, many of our emotions, they're anchored. They're anchored either in the past or in the future. For example, you take a look at some of these, they're anchored in the past. Now that it's angry, this is about regret. This is about sadness and grief. Now, what I'm not saying you shouldn't experience these emotions. Not at all. These are actually meant to be experienced. What I'm saying is that don't set up camp in the past. So yes, I can be angry right now, but it's often about something that happened earlier or in the past, or just happened, and now I'm stewing on it. Someone cut me off, and then I'm angry the rest of the day. Does that make sense? It's in the past. Sadness is the same way. Now, grieving, yes, grieve. Be sad when something happens. In fact, don't put on a happy face and be like, I just need to suck it up. No, no, no. When you're with that emotion, be all in with that emotion. That's important. But again, those are anchored in the past. What about the future? Future emotions like stress and worry and anxiety, all of that is anchored in the future. We experience stress right now, but it's always about something that hasn't happened yet. Now, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't experience this, but don't set up camp in those future emotions, that worry and the anxiety as well. And we'll talk, the curriculum talks about all kinds of strategies to help with that. But for this slide, look at those emotions in the middle. Isn't that awesome? This is peace and joy and meaning and interest and surprise and calmness, trust. All of those we experience right now, and they're anchored right now. You see some of those spill over into anticipation and hope and optimism, gratitude. It's always about the past emotions. So in this curriculum, we talk about, hey, pay attention. Don't just go all over the place with your emotions. But the happiest people on this planet, they pay attention to what they're feeling in the moment, and not just get carried away, because a wandering mind tends to wander to the corners, either stress and worry, anxiety, or anger, and we start stewing about things that have happened in the past. So um, being able to be aware of our emotions and choose those that bring you more happiness. Kate, talk about in this one as well, part of searching inward is being aware of and recognizing your core four. What I'm talking about are your values, not things that you value, but what are your values? What kind of guides your life? In fact, if you were to, one way to think about this, what are my values? Think about a funeral. What do you want people to say at your funeral? What is it? How would you want people to describe you? If they could only use four words, for example, how would you want them to describe you? That's your core four. So here's an example of some. This is not an exhaustive list, of course, but here are some examples of some values. Think about those. How do I? What is the type of person, the type of partner, the type of parent that I want to be? Now, here's the kicker. The happiest people on this planet strive to shorten the gap between here's my values, but here's my behavior, and here what's called the guilt gap, right? I want to be kind, I want to be patient, and then I blow it and I lose it with someone at work, my partner or child, or I snap at them. And so I didn't live up to my values. And so like, oh, now I'm feeling what? Regret and shame and guilt and all of that. So, and so it's a process in life. The closer we can align our behaviors with our values, the happier that we'll be. So work on closing that gap. And under stress, if we can turn and live true to your core four, again, we'll do much better instead of like, oh, is what am I about to say? Am I gonna violate one of my core four values? Am I gonna violate whatever I'm about to say and I feel like saying? And if so, don't say it, don't do it. Pause, catch yourself, catch it, check it, change it is what I like to say. Okay, so that's a quick little summary of the first one. The second session, I talk about bumps and breakdowns and detours, and here's where we talk about understanding and managing stress and challenges. So in this we kind of jump ahead more to this pressing forward through all the struggles in your life. One of the slides, I'll just show you a handful of these slides due to time, is related to just drawing two circles, right? You get a piece of paper, you draw two circles, and in one circle, you say, you write, okay, things that matter. And then another one, you write things that I can control. And where those overlap, that's where hopefully we spend more of our worry time and our time and energy on those things that we can control and those things that really, really matter. And it feels like, at least in my life, the older I get, I start thinking, you know what, that circle is actually getting smaller and smaller, the things that really matter. I used to think that, a lot of all this stuff mattered. And I think, wow, what really, really matters in life? And then you jot that down, whether it's work or joy or happiness or peace or faith or whatever that is for you. Say, okay, I'm not going to have all this time and energy in this life to worry and stress about all this. And it helps just a visual to say right here, this is what I'm going to focus on. Another slide that we talk about is this one by Reuben Hill. I mean, this is back in 1949. I think Reuben Hill came up with this ABCX model. He essentially found that when we feel stress, whether it leads to crisis or to resilience, he said, really depends on at least these two big ones. And these are like the big rocks. And one is the resources that you have available. And the second one is your perception. We have a bit more control over these, right? How you perceive stresses, learning to see stress and challenges differently, more as an obstacle rather than as this barrier, right, that I can't get through. And then resources, whether that is turning to people or to a pet or to a savings account or a friend, the people that are able to turn to the resources and perceive things differently are more likely to be resilient rather than, oh, this is a crisis. How am I going to get through this and kind of freak out? So we talk a little bit about that and work through some scenarios in that model as well. Another part of managing stress and challenges, I came up with an acronym. I love acronyms, called HUMMER, right? HUMMER. And we break each of these down on separate slides, and we go into a lot more detail in the course. But appropriate humor in the right situations can be helpful at times, and at other times it can make you more stressful when someone says something sarcastic or something snarky, and you're not in the mood for that. Trying to understand the stresses, where they come from, and understand what you can do, understand the situation. Finding meaning and mindfulness, those are the two M's. When we talk about managing stress, two incredible, the research behind these has exploded in recent years. Exercise, again, more research in this area. When we get our heart rate up, when we can breathe, moving our body moves our brains, we're able to think and process differently. We actually view the stressor differently when we're in a positive mindset, when we're and exercise, being healthy and active. And then the R talked about earlier, those resources. And we talk about what resources do you have in this that you can rely on. So that's a little bit that we talk about on the second one, with managing stress and challenges, more of that pressing forward through the difficult times. Okay, for this third one, this maintenance and management is what we call it on our life journeys. I call it happy hacks. And if you've been to any of these, I've presented happy hacks presentations probably over 120, 130 times across the country. Some of that is infused into this area. And then we talk about meaning as well. So I'll spend a little bit of time in this one because I think there's some powerful things in this one that can help you on your life journey to have more joy and meaning. In this one, we talk about turning outward. So searching inward is all about you. Okay, not in the selfish sense, but this is discovering your strengths, your gifts, your talents, your values, right? Discovering those, and happiness comes from actually turning outward and looking upward, finding meaning and hope. Um, Being kind, gratitude, all those things are turning outward. So I'll give you, we dive into a lot in this one. I don't have time to really jump into it, but the whole basis of this is that, hey, here's us, and here's this happiness and joy that we are pursuing. And the research shows, you know what, if there's certain things that people do that bring this positivity and this happiness. And part of turning outward, one of my favorite all time is gratitude. Just gratitude is actually essential for us. One of my favorite researchers in this area are Dr. Robert Emmons. Great books. There's a couple you can see on the slide there. He says, we know from studies that gratitude helps us recover from loss and trauma. All of us have experienced loss and trauma, especially I would say in the last 4 years since the COVID, right? It helps us to deal with the slow drip of everyday stress, as well as the massive personal upheavals in the face of, and then he just goes off, suffering and pain and loss and trials and tribulations. He says gratitude is absolutely essential. It's part of our psychological immune system. I didn't even know we had a psychological immune system. This one is so very powerful. Pausing and noticing and appreciating and recognizing. Again, why is this the key? One of the keys to happiness? Because it's not about you. It's not about you. And in workshops, I talk about pausing and actually texting 2 before 10. I have them pull out their phones right there and send a text to someone right there in the moment who you need to show gratitude for. In fact, a wise leader once said, we should never fail to thank those who have taught us well. I love that. As soon as I heard that, right? We should never fail to thank those who have taught us well. I started writing letters, handwritten letters to former teachers and scoutmaster and religious leaders in my life, thanking them for the influence that they have had in my life. In fact, one of my favorite, I have my Dave's faves, right? Some of my favorite talks in this area. TED Talks, I'm a big TED Talk fan, is by David Steindl-Rast. And he says this. He says, in daily life, we must see that it is not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratefulness that makes us happy. Oh, love that. And then he says this, gratefulness is the key to a happy life that we hold in our hands. Because if we're not grateful, then no matter how much we have, we will not be happy because we will always want to have something else or something more. I love that. Another great professor in a class that I took, he said, you could never get enough of what you don't need because what you don't need will never satisfy you. I was like, whoa, that's so great. You can never get enough of what you don't need because what you don't need will never satisfy you. Okay, so gratitude, one of my favorite happiness hacks, and it's free. The other one is racks. I like to call it racks, random acts of kindness. This has been shown to be one of the quickest ways of boosting happiness and positivity and meaning. And what Jonathan Haidt calls elevation, that warm feeling. Scientists have actually called that elevation. When we do something kind or we see someone else, this virtuous feeling, we get warm inside of our hearts. They call that elevation. Okay, he says, Martin Seligman says, doing a kind act produces the single most reliable momentary increase in well-being of any exercise that they've ever tested. So truly, kindness is king. Like it trumps everything else. It's one of the fastest way to be happy and to experience that feeling of elevation, positivity, is through kindness. Okay, exercise, diet, sleep. I won't spend too long on these, but part of that is foundational. If someone's not feeling happy, I almost first go right here. Tell me about your diet, your sleep, and your exercise, because those are foundational for happiness. Another one that I love to talk a little bit about is starting your day in a positive way. Research continues to show how you start your day, even the first 20, 30 minutes. What do you do? What's the routine? Do you hit snooze? Do you scroll your phone for a half hour? Researchers are saying, hey, there's a better way. There's a better way. Whether it's exercise, it's yoga, it's stretching, it's meditation, it's reading, it's prayer, it is watching, doing something that is positive. I like that text 2 before 10, texting two people, a text of kindness, appreciation, love, gratitude before 10 a.m. I think that's an excellent way to start your day. Wake up and you just think, who needs a text from me right now? And then notice the nudges and follow the feelings, right? Notice the nudges and follow the feelings. Who needs a text from me right now? There'll be a name or a face. It'll come into your mind. It happens every single time I ask. Send that person a text or an email or a message, letting them know. Full glass of water, another great way to start the day. Scrolling your phone is not the best way to start your day, science shows. Okay, so, and I haven't talked about all of these, but here are some of these. So here's us, and here's some of these happy hacks and these habits that we get into, and it produces more happiness and joy in our lives. Now, don't like do every single one and try to do these every single day or something. Try something simple and small and see how it goes. Okay, and then meaning is different. So meaning comes from, again, it's turning outward. But here's some examples: from serving, from lifting, from loving others, volunteering, dedicating a small portion of your time, your talents, your gifts, your effort in a higher cause. Remember back, Seligman called that the meaningful life, doing meaningful things for others. Okay, transcendence, this awe, this inspiration, being, when's the last time you held like this little baby and looked in their eyes, or you hiked up in the mountains somewhere, or you had this wonderful spiritual, feeling, this emotions, you looked up at the sky, you saw a sunset. All of those things, scientists have actually studied those. And they hook people up and they measure those and they bring down the heart rate when they're in these amazing, awesome times, this inspiration. One of the things I like to extend people is to create an awe album or an awesome album, even in your phone. You can create a little folder or in your photos, and you just go through and you have nothing to do. You're standing in line somewhere and you're at the airport and you just create, oh man, I always want to remember this. And you start making an awe album that you can turn to from like the highlights of your life, things that bring you awe, inspiration, transcendence. So again, a quick little snapshot, but it gives you a little idea of some of the things that we talk about in this curriculum. And there it is. Look at all those things that science shows that bring happiness and meaning into our lives. Okay, talk about the last one. The last area that we talk about in this curriculum is, I call it along for the ride, because research continues to show that the turning outward in our relationships, again, one of the happiest predictors that we can have of happiness, positivity, and meaning in our lives come from our relationships. And they're also actually one of the strongest predictors of unhappiness when relationships are not going well. We take a dive. That's how important relationships are in our lives. Okay, one of the slides, one of the things I talk about in this in the curriculum, I call it the Great Eight, and these are 8 principles. These are not the only 8, right? But there's all kinds of things that go into building happier, healthier relationships, from love and kindness to understanding to trust and appreciation. Some of you may have heard me say this, that lack of attention leads to loss of connection. Lack of attention leads to loss of connection. So what you pay attention to and how much you invest time, effort, understanding, forgiveness into your relationships, they that investment, what you put into that will pay dividends, leads to the happiness and closeness and that feeling of connection, because it's one of our 3 needs, right? Safety, satisfaction, and connection. And I truly believe is that the quote that you see there, that relationships cannot survive without compassion, and they cannot flourish without kindness. I also talk about roots and fruits. So I got this from a colleague, Jason Carroll. He talks about roots and fruits in relationships and distinguishing what are the roots and what are the fruits in relationships. All of us, We want happy, healthy relationships. We want these connections. At the root of the base of this, I'm a firm believer that there's things like love and trust and forgiveness and understanding. Ultimately, this is about building that friendship, talking about personal virtues, values that we talked about earlier, this positive mindset. And when we have that, then we're able to enjoy more of the fruits. We're happier, we're more positive and productive, and rich. We're more likely to have a more satisfying sexual, intimate relationship in those intimate relationships that we have with knowing that the roots are nourished, then the fruits. But sometimes we sit there and focus, I want this and this. I want good communication and I want, playfulness and to do fun things. That stems from feeling like, yes, I, man, he or she is my best friend. So we talk about the difference and where do you put your time? Watering the roots or trying to get those fruits without actually doing the work that lays the foundation, and that's what's often not seen underneath, and that's the roots. Okay, so you're saying, oh man, hopefully this is something that you want to sign up for. And again, the best part, you guys, this is free. It's free. And so part at USU Extension, we have strongermarriage.org. That's the website for all the Utah Marriage Commission resources are at strongermarriage.org. But the classes that we offer, a lot of the classes in the community, again, free, are found at healthyrelationshipsutah.org. And there happens to be some that are coming up. There will be in-person ones. There will be virtual ones. There's some virtual classes of Road to Happiness and Meaning, the one that I've been talking about that I developed. I've trained folks around the state, and they're offering that now, again, free throughout the state. So you can go there, you can register, you can sign up, and then go back to Healthy Relationships Utah, because more and more classes are being added all the time. And I'll show you actually some of those classes here in the next couple of slides. So I want to talk briefly about some of the resources that the Utah Marriage Commission offers. Speaking of which, tomorrow night is the largest virtual date night in Utah. So if you hadn't registered for that, go to strongermarriage.org and sign up. There's going to be speakers. There's going to be a keynote comedian at the end. So strongermarriage.org, sign up for that. I think it's like $15. Incredible date night. Not only do you get access to tomorrow's all the content and workshops online, but you get access to dozens and dozens of other pre-recorded and previous years of information in there. So all kinds of topics you don't want to miss tomorrow night. And if you're watching this and it's already recorded, go back and you can still look at all those if you register for that. Okay, so the Utah Marriage Commission, it's been around for 25 years. Alexis mentioned in 2023, we celebrated the 25-year anniversary. It kind of bounced around from organization. A few years ago, it was brought up to Utah State University. And so now we are the hosts of the Utah Marriage Commission, organized again, 1998. There's a little bit of the history of that. But really the purpose is to provide free research-based educational resources to couples to help all of us to sustain happy, healthy couple relationships. And there, I'm going to keep plugging it, strongermarriage.org. You got to go check it out because we're continuing to add so much there. One of the things that Alexis mentioned is I love doing this podcast with Dr. Liz Hale. Hopefully that you've heard some of these. If not, you got to go check it out. It's on KSL Podcasts and Apple, Spotify. It launched back in September of 2022. So we're up to 70 something episodes. They come out every Monday morning, and we love it. We have guests on. Sometimes it's Liz and I, and other times it's therapists and authors, professionals from all across the country come on and be our guests on there. So go check out the podcast and subscribe, and all kinds of help and topics, as you can see, from step families to struggles with infidelity, affairs, and divorce, and all kinds of great topics. Okay, it gives you a little snippet, a little snapshot of some of the other resources. Tonight is one of the webinars, and if this is the first webinar, welcome. If you're familiar with this, you know that there are dozens of previously recorded webinars that you can sign up for. You can go and you can watch. Again, it's free. All that we're offering is free. That second one, the Relate assessment, we have one for singles, we have one for couples. If you do the Relate assessment anywhere else, it costs between $25 to $40. But again, I'm just a broken record. You go to strongermarriage.org, you click on that, and you can take it for free. You can take it for free. This is not just for newlyweds or new couples. You can get on there and you take it, each of you are in a relationship, and it will produce an amazing report. Areas that say, "Wow, wow." Um, Family background and finances, sexual intimacy. It's pretty broad in all the areas that it covers. And then it says, hey, here's both of your scores, and here's some things that you may want to chat about. And then e-prep. I'll talk a little bit about e-prep on this next slide. It's 6 hours of relationship education, all kinds of great topics: commitment, communication, managing conflict. And if you know engaged couples or those who may be engaged in the next little 6 months to the next year or so, let them know about this, because they can get $20 off their marriage license here in Utah if you sign up and you complete 6 hours of relationship education. A few other things that I want to highlight: the Utah Marriage Handbook is on there for free. Should I try to work it out? Okay, some of you may have experienced this. Some of you have family members, loved ones who are maybe separated or on the brink of divorce. I highly encourage at least go check out and download this resource. It's a great resource on things to think about before just splitting up. Huge decision, and for many people, that is that's the right decision. But at least this allows us to kind of pause and review some resources before making that decision. I mentioned earlier, Healthy Relationships Utah. So this has been going on with 17, 18 years, a long time here with USU Extension. And again, all these classes, they're offered virtually and in person. You got to go to healthyrelationshipsutah.org and you can check out. Here are some of the classes. You can see Road to Happiness and Meaning was just added a few months ago to the list of available classes. Parenting classes, fatherhood classes, classes for step families, couples. We go into the high school, into the gels. We're able to really get this great information classes out to people. We're doing some fun social media. I thought would plug our social media. You got to follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. As far as the Stronger Marriage, the Utah Marriage Commission, we have fun contests. There's one going on right now for one of the massage guns. You got to check it out. Go follow us on Instagram, and it talks about the rules and what you need to do to get your questions answered, related relationships, and what you need to do to enter the contest for social media. So go check that out. Go check out the website. There's a ton of great information on there as well. Okay, so I've been talking like super crazy fast about all types of resources that we have. I'm going to pause here and share again the websites. So strongermarriage.org, if you haven't heard that enough, healthyrelationshipsutah.org, jot both of those down, go visit those. Relationships.usu.edu has all kinds of other extension resources on relationships. I have my own, if you put /Dr. Dr. Dave, then all my stuff that I've ever created and developed, there's a page that just has all my stuff on there as well, that website. There's my email address. Send me an email if you have questions or information. The social media channels that I use to get information out there, a YouTube channel that I have over 200 videos on happiness, on parenting, on marriage, couple relationships. So there you have it. There's kind of the quick version of the road to happiness and meaning. I hope it's been helpful. I did want to show, didn't get it ready here, that when you register for that class here, I will stop sharing and I will, as you can see my screen a little bit better, you'll actually get this little journal, this little spiral bound manual with all kinds of information and tools and things to fill out that I put together. So you'll get one of your little, I call it the owner's manual, right? You put it in a glove box. We used to have owner's manuals, like physical ones. Now everything's gone digital, but we provide all the participants with one of these to take home as well and to keep notes. And there's homework assignments, all kinds of fun stuff in there. So that's my plug for Road to Happiness and Meaning. I talk like 90 miles per hour. Okay, Alexis, questions?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that, and for everybody for staying here and listening to those things. They're so amazing, and I have benefited myself. I recently got married last year and took advantage of some of those resources, and it really benefited me in my partnership because there's certain things you just don't know what to ask. And even if you've been married for a really long time, like Dave said, sometimes you just get into the normalcy of it all. And so being able to really utilize these resources to kind of keep it fresh, I think is really great. We do have a couple questions already, so we'll just head right in. Our first question is, how do we manage the different needs of a couple with big age difference?
Oh, yeah, great question. Um, eh, with age gaps, there can be all kinds of differences that come in. Kind of depends on the differences, whether it's health challenges, whether it's other needs or preferences and differences in family. I mean, there can be all kinds of differences there. I would say one of the first things is understanding, aiming for understanding, truly listening to the other person. So you understand, you know their needs, showing compassion, holding up the emotional mirror, because as soon as you start doing any of this back and forth, immediately the walls go up. And when we have true compassion for the other person, understanding the needs, the desires, the differences, whatever those challenges are, I say aim for the things that you do love and appreciate. What are the similarities? So there are going to be differences, and you may have heard this, the whole 80-20. There's some research behind that suggests that we love, we appreciate, we agree with, we get along with about 80% of the time, or about 80% of our partner. And there's about 20% that kind of bugs us. And there's some differences and things that really can get in the way. So research suggests this: focus on the 80% that you enjoy, that you love, that you appreciate, rather than the 20%. When we focus on the differences and the struggles, then that 20% starts to feel like 80%. Now, here's the kicker. On that 20% that bugs us, that we wish we could change, we wish wasn't there, we wish would be something else. Research suggests that some of that can change. 69% of that can change, but 29% of that can change. But it changes by not focusing and dwelling and arguing about it. It's by loving and accepting the person for who they are, rather than focusing on that and managing that difference. So I would say that's a tough one, because it's the age difference does bring some real challenges into it. But the fundamental principles, coming back to principles and how you apply them in your situation, it's going to be different for everybody. But it's compassion, it's understanding, it's connection, it's that friendship. It's coming back to those roots that we talked about. The fruits, right, are enjoying this and having wonderful times and fun. Coming back to some of those roots, I would see is key.
I love that. Our next question is, how to maintain a long distance relationship?
Oh, yeah, great question. And those are becoming more and more common, for sure. The long distance relationships. It's some of the, I mean, you can't be there, physically. And so now we have so much technology of, FaceTiming and texting and connecting, I know some couples who've even done date nights, apart. They're living in different cities, or someone's at college and someone's at home, and they'll actually do these face nights. Some will even watch movies together. They'll play games or whatever together. But the principle is still finding ways for connection to bring you two together, talking, like, long talks on the phone. It depends on can you see them ever on that long distance relationship? Having something to look forward to is really healthy as well, because it's not just like, but having, okay, maybe in 3 months or in 6 months or a year, whatever that time is, planning for that, military marriage, or someone's overseas, all kinds of reasons for long distance relationships. But the principle comes back to still that communication, understanding, sharing the highlights of the day. Tell me about the good news minute. What went well today for you? What was the best part of your day? You're talking about, you're listening, you're understanding their world. And again, you're all in attention, because love is no longer spelled Time, right? We've heard that. We've heard that time. Time is important, but more important than time is attention. Is attention, that whatever you are, be all in attention to that person. So you can still send little gifts, some random acts of kindness, discovering what is their love language, and then striving to turn outward and be there for that. maintaining connection, it just looks different. But I think having something to look forward to and doing those little things, little surprises, can go a long way. Yeah, great.
I love
Other
that.
questions?
I think that that's so cool. I actually, one of my within the first week of me dating my husband now, we ended up being in a long distance relationship for a couple months. And I think that it was really hard, but I love that idea of attention and bringing out like prioritization. I saw like him put a lot of time into prioritizing me in different ways. And I think that I can be an example of that, that it really is just seeing how they want to spend time with you and making the time to spend time with you, even if
Yeah,
it's in a
love it.
different way.
Absolutely. And I come back, Alexis, to those two big ones where it talks about gratitude and kindness. I just feel like gratitude and kindness, expressing that appreciation, whether it's this little text and say, hey, just thinking about you, hey, sure love you, or hey, hope you have a great day today. Knowing it takes more attention to know what's going on in their day. What do they have coming up? Do they have a big test? Do they have something in job interview? Do they have a project that they're working on? And remembering that and then checking in. Hey, how is that going? I'd love to hear an update. And then getting excited when they're excited about something is huge, right? When they're down, you kind of are down. You're feeling that you're with them emotionally when you can't be physically.
I love that. Our next question is any recommendations for rebuilding trust?
Oh man. Wow. Thanks for the question. This one is huge and perhaps one of the biggest areas because, as the person knows, and all of us, many of these reminders, trust is the foundation of all relationships, right? Trust is, and this is easily burned and slowly earned. And so it's making these small little deposits, getting an opportunity. Okay, I'm going to trust that this is happening, celebrating the small wins in when trust is kept, or hey, thanks for letting me know, or I appreciate that, or it's being vulnerable. And every situation is different, so I have to be very, very delicate with this one because trust is not just okay, yeah, and I've been burned. That's painful. One of the most painful challenges in relationships is when trust is burned. And so my heart hurts, yeah, for people who have had that foundation burned. I also highly recommend actually counselors, therapists going through that process of learning, rebuilding trust in relationships. Now, as far as like if affairs, cheating, intimacy and betrayal, all of that, betrayal trauma, very, very real. I actually recommend Jeff Stewart, Geoff Stewart, Steurer, in St. George, Utah. He's got great stuff on social media, and he has a podcast, all kinds of stuff on rebuilding trust. Jill Manning is another one that we've had on the podcast. Both of them have been on the podcast. So if you really want to dig deep into trust, which is huge, I would recommend either looking at previous webinars that we've done on that and podcast episodes that focus solely on rebuilding trust. Great question. It's just a difficult one to answer in a couple of minutes. So I don't want to kind of cheat you out of there, but say, hey, here's resources you can go for more information.
Perfect. Our next question is how do you navigate coming out of guilt, shame, or these past emotions that you talked about?
Yeah, that one is really tough. Step number one is recognizing it, catching yourself in that, because a lot of us will feel that guilt, that shame. I call it the guilt gap, is knowing your core four, and then you don't quite measure up, and so now I feel guilty, and now I feel shame. But it's actually practicing it and catching yourself, noticing that, and then getting very, very curious about those emotions, pausing, noticing, recognizing some, I think meditation, mindfulness, which we have all kinds of great resources on, can really help with that kind of that guilt trip that we find ourselves on. So it's catching it and then battling against it, coming up with evidence about why that's not true. Times when I was really good, times when I didn't lose it, times when I had been a good parent. I don't know the situation specifically, so I'm kind of guessing here, but we can feel guilty and feel that guilt and shame in a lot of areas. If it's something that we've done or said, then it is that forgiveness of whoever it is, but then forgiving ourselves as well. That can take time, patience, I think a great book that I would recommend is by Judson Brewer and Unwinding Anxiety. I know it sounds weird. I know your question wasn't about anxiety, but he goes into these little habits of triggers, behaviors, and reward. And what we sometimes happen is we get stuck, whether it's a bad habit, whether it's anxiety, whether it's even guilt or shame, which he talks about, is that we have a trigger. Something triggered it. It was a thought. And I think back, and then it's this behavior, and then it's like, oh man, I'm a loser. And we go into this little cycle, which can be really unhealthy. So part of it is recognizing the cycle of trigger, behavior, reward with any addiction, with any kind of cycle is typically the same, from pornography to smoking or anything else. It's this little cycle. So catching that, Brene Brown, may have heard that name, pretty popular name. She's given some great talks, great TED Talk, two TED Talks now that I've listened to of hers, where she gives some great advice on shame and on guilt and overcoming those. So those are a few of my ideas. And then I love to share, hey, here's some resources. So Judson, Judson, one of my all-time, probably in my top 5 Dave's Faves books is Unwinding Anxiety. Another one that I will recommend is by Alex Korb, and that is called The Upward Spiral. So those two books help with any kind of little things to get us out of these loops of anxiety, of this negative self-talk. We all have this um, voice in our heads that takes us down unhealthy places. So those are a few places. And again, a couple podcasts episodes ago, we had some great information on some of that guilt and that self-talk that can really drag us down. So anyway, so there's some resources I hope will be helpful.
Yeah, and additionally, we actually had Tyler Patrick come on a webinar a couple months ago, talk about that exact shame cycle. So if you're interested in that, you should check that out. He talks a lot about how to get out of that, and how we recognize that it is happening and breaking each part of that cycle.
Love that. Thanks, Alexis. A huge plug for Tyler Patrick. Yeah, great stuff. The webinar, he was on the podcast as well. Check those out because he specializes in that area. So yeah,
And
thanks
he's
for
broken
plugging it.
addiction himself, which is really cool. It's awesome to see somebody get through it themselves.
Yeah, his story's awesome.
Yeah, I loved another aspect of that too, where he talked a little bit about morning pages in something he put on his website, which is just essentially doing some kind of journaling each morning. And it's something that I've started doing since I heard about it. And I know that you also have kind of a journaling regime and a plug that you like for journaling. And I'd love to hear about that too, Dave.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of journaling. There's an online one that I use, an app. I think it's called the 5 Minute Journal. Now there's all kinds of ones out there that you can use. Being able to journal to process that, research has actually shown that physically writing something down, what happens is that our brain goes back to it. And the principle is this: we remember what we rehearse and review. Okay. We remember what we rehearse and review. It cements it on our brain. So when we're reliving the positive, happy things in the Schramm fam, for example, tonight before we go to bed, our family will get together. And in our family, we have a family prayer, and then we will each say one thing that made us happy that day. So it's a happy thought. So we're reliving, we're going back, cementing it in our brains. The same thing science is showing with journaling, of actually going through both the positive and the negative. We have to kind of be careful, journal about kind of the difficult days, the tough times, I think, and then even the lessons learned through those. Did I gain a new perspective through this challenge or through this relationship? Did I gain more patience, or did I develop the virtue of kindness, or am I more grateful or humble? So reviewing your day, my wife, she has I think it's called the 5 year journal, and it's just like this much space on each page for that same day for 5 years in a row. So every night she kind of jots down her thoughts, and then she can see, oh, this is what happened this year in 2023 and 22, and go back and find that. So reliving the good times. Huge fan of journaling, and the more I study about it, the research behind it is awesome.
Thank you. Our next question is, do you have examples of where you've seen racks help people you've associated with?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, lots of situations, lots of examples of people who are struggling, and just saying, hey, just try text 2 before 10. Just try it. Just pick up your phone. And that's one of the simplest random acts of kindness that you can do is texting somebody. Now, the research on this, Alexis, is pretty cool because not only if you do something kind, but it works not quite to the full extent, but they're showing that you can benefit even from watching others. So you can actually turn on a YouTube video. You can just type in random acts of kindness, sit there, 5 minutes or so and watch these random acts of kindness of strangers, of people helping the homeless. Watching it actually produces that same type of elevation. But noticing the good, get good at noticing the good and then doing good can help us, at least produces the spark that kind of creates the upward spiral. But it can start with who needs me today? Who needs me today? And then you do something. You make some cookies. My wife took a loaf of bread over to a woman who was sick in our neighborhood last night. We notice it starts with paying attention and getting outside of ourselves, because when we're suffering, honestly, it turns us inward. Okay. And all of us suffer. But one of the best ways is anyone experiencing the same burden as I am right now? And I'm sure that there is. Can I do anything to relieve their burden? So turning outward at any age, helping siblings, hey, making their bed. Man, I have example after example of it's really hard, Alexis, to be upset, to be mean at someone who's just done something so kind. And honestly, I've received a couple of emails just and texts in the last couple of days that have totally made my day. Someone has just checked in, this youth that I've known who's getting older, and he just sent me this, and it totally makes my day. And so if I know it makes my day, pause, make someone else's day, turn out random acts of kindness in relationships and marriage. It's the same thing. What can I do to make his or her day? What can I do something kind? And maybe it's just a text, or maybe it's their favorite, Diet Dr. Pepper. That's my favorite drink that my wife brings me. It's having that outward mindset can create, and it can melt those feelings of harshness, of bitterness, of just a simple act of kindness. So huge fan. I could talk about that one all night. Gratitude and kindness. Yeah.
I love that. This person actually has kind of a supplemental question to that, about these random acts of kindness, saying, generally, I don't think too much about turning outward in my life. I would like to start doing it though. And I was wondering how you process starting random acts of kindness in your life or examples from other people.
Yeah, that is a great one. It's just about noticing what is it that people love, what do they enjoy, what could I do, and sometimes it's just like, hey, my wife went to the gym. Yeah, I'm gonna make the bed. I'm gonna pick things up a little bit. I'm just gonna do something kind, not because I want to be noticed and appreciated, but just because I know that will make their day. For example, even if you have a dog and you start scratching the dog, that makes the dog happy, doesn't it? And it's weird because kindness is one of the few things we do something kind and we feel happy as well. I know that with our dog. So it works with doing anything. I suggest starting just simply with text 2 before 10. If there's others in your household, you just think what would truly, make their day. Another one, just a simple little note. Okay. I don't know if you have kids or whatever it is, but you can simply write a little note, a little sticky note, and share specifically about something that they did or said, something that you appreciate. And instead of saying, I love you is important, but instead of saying that, you could say, I just want to let you know, I love being your dad, or I love being your wife. I love being your husband, whatever that is, let them know. Let them know. Go let them know. Put it on a sticky note, send them a text. It's now, I love yous are important, but I absolutely love being your husband. Or I love it when, yeah, you do this or share this. Thank you so much for thinking of me today. So you can start small, and then you get on those YouTube videos and you start seeing all this other stuff. You can leave someone a great tip at a restaurant. I mean, it's endless. Getting the grocery carts at the shopping center, asking about someone's day, picking up something, putting it in the trash. It's all around us. If we'll look around, we'll have opportunities to. So you observe, then serve.
I love that. I think that's so cool. My brother actually sets a reminder on his phone to do something for his wife every day at 6 p.m. Every time I'm hanging out with him, he leaves whatever we're doing to go and do something for his wife. And I think that's really cool to see.
I love it. And reminders, because sometimes, oh, like, oh yeah, I need to text 2 before 10, or I need to do, yeah,
Yeah.
totally good.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for your questions, and thank you, Dave, for this awesome presentation. We're really grateful for all of you taking the time to join us tonight. And once again, if you did attend this webinar for the CEU credit, please make sure to stay until the very end of the webinar. The survey you need for your certificate should automatically load onto the screen. If for some reason it doesn't, please email us at marriagecommission@usu.edu. We'll make sure you get your certificate. We'll send you that survey, and then we'll send you the certificate. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. And thanks, Dave.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.